guys, and welcome to day 11 in my countdown to the season 7 premiere of The Walking Dead. So today I'm going to be doing my season 3 spotlight. Let's just get right into it. So basically, I kind of touch on this in the season 2 spotlight, but the theme of season 3 to me is the fact that walkers are not the biggest threat anymore. It is people. And, you know, I feel like there's just so many examples of that in the 3rd season, obviously none bigger than the governor. But before we get into the governor, let's kind of talk about the prisoners that they encountered at the end of the 1st and into the 2nd episode. So, like any group, you know, the prisoners consisted of some good guys like Oscar and Axel, and some not so good guys like Tomas and Andrew. So what's really kind of interesting about the whole thing is that, you know, the rules that kind of kept bad guys from doing bad things no longer apply. And I think it's really representative and kind of staring us all in the face with this whole, you know, them literally having been behind bars and now being free because, you know, that's the way that the world is right now. I thought that there was a lot of great moments in the first couple of episodes that really kind of showed how far Rick's group have actually come in a survivor sort of way. You know, they were really kind of cozy on the farm, and a lot of people criticized that season because of that. And I just think that it's kind of really cool that we're starting to see them kind of come into their own and be a force to be reckoned with, in a sense. I think the way that Rick handled Tomas, there were a lot of gritty moments in the first couple episodes. Herschel losing his leg, Rick stepping up like so quickly to chop off his friend's leg, like really quick. I think one of the biggest lessons that Rick learned in season 3 is when you leave someone to die, make sure that they're dead. Obviously, I am talking about the killer within that episode and kind of what happened in that whole sequence. I think it really kind of shaped how Rick deals with things now. You know, I think he thought he was leaving Andrew to die, but I think the Rick today would make sure that, you know, you don't leave your enemies alive, like you make sure. And just because of what happened with Lori and also T-Dog, you know, I think Rick really kind of had this revelation in a very heart-wrenching way that this is kind of how things need to be done now. Something that a lot of people criticized about the 3rd season that I actually really liked was how long Rick kind of went through a mourning period or a crazy period, however you want to call it, after Lori died. I thought that it was kind of realistic, maybe not him with the phone call and just imagining people, but I thought it was very realistic that, you know, a lot of shows do that whole, like, someone died, and then we have a mourning episode where everybody feels really sad about it, and then everything's back to normal. Like, it makes no sense. And I think I like that the show always deals with how other people are affected by deaths. I feel like they don't kill, you know, very easily. I mean, a lot of people die, but I think that there's a purpose, you know, and I think Lori's death was supposed to get Rick through this kind of very difficult time and for him to kind of come out of it a different person. So I actually really liked that whole thing. And I think even in a lot of regards, how everyone, you know, started out the 3rd season is, you know, they're completely different by the end. I think Merle is a huge example of that. I think Morgan, even in that one episode, was a really great example of that he, you know, who he once was, who we saw in season 1. Whoa. I mean, the whole episode is really heartbreaking, but that episode just like completely showcased how this world can really change you. And it was so interesting to see Rick and Morgan together in that episode, because Rick is was in a sense in the same place in a lot of ways that Morgan was. And it's kind of like looking in a mirror. It was really, really kind of a jarring experience, and probably one of the things that actually made Rick kind of accept things more and come out of it. Obviously, we're seeing a huge change in Carl as well. I think Carl was just, he always wanted to be more active in things, but now we're seeing him get a lot hardened by the actions of his dad and the people around him. He's seeing the horrors of the world, and, at the end of season 3, he's not in the best place where he just shoots that kid. Whether that's a good thing or not, it probably wasn't the best for Carl to be doing it. And of course, also going into the whole kidnapping of Glenn and Maggie, we see a very different side of this beautiful couple that we're all rooting for, and this horrible thing that happened to them. I personally think that I loved the direction they took Glenn in season 3. I thought there were flaws with him. I thought how he dealt with everything that happened between the governor and him and Maggie after the fact maybe wasn't the best, but it was very realistic. And I just really loved that he really stepped up. And I think that was kind of the moment that he kind of surpassed the comic book Glenn in my mind. Obviously, when we talk about people being more of a threat, we have to talk about the governor. Absolutely. The governor, to me, I feel was really, really well done. Very different from the comics, but well done nonetheless. I think the charisma of him was something that was a little, it caught me a little off guard, and it was kind of interesting to see that way of portraying the governor. And I liked that we kind of got glimpses into the fact that I feel like the governor didn't, he wasn't a real evil person before the apocalypse. I mean, it's up to interpretation in the TV version, I mean. But he lost his family and he just needed to cope some way. And we're seeing all of these examples right up to, like a mirror image to Rick of what direction he could become. He could go a Morgan direction, he could go to a governor direction. And we're seeing all of these kind of examples of what has happened to people and how they have changed. Change is a very, very big theme of the 3rd season. I think it's a theme in a lot of the seasons, but in particular, I think we're following Rick's journey, and we're seeing all of the weird directions that he could possibly go in. I liked that, the governor, there were just little tidbits of info of him being maybe a bad guy, maybe a psycho, but we didn't really get it, full-fledged thrown into our face until maybe, a little later in the season, or about halfway through the season, or whatever. I read the comics, so I knew where it was going, but if for somebody who hasn't, I thought that was really interesting. And I liked that they showed it through Andrea's eyes. Okay, I am not the biggest fan of Andrea. Love her in the comics, but I did like that we had a physical representation of someone who is trying to give the benefit of the doubt, and someone who cared both about the people in the prison and the people of Woodbury. I think we as viewers didn't really give a shit about the people of Woodbury. But I think that it was really interesting to see someone try to save everyone. And it was really, really tragic to see her not succeed in the end. And I liked that last moment of I was just trying to save everyone. And when Rick says you are part of us, you are still part of us, it was a really, really sad moment when Andrea ended up not making it, even if I wasn't the biggest fan of her, I still felt the magnitude of everything she was trying to do. You know, you say a lot of things about Andrea. Maybe she was naive, you know, there was a lot of things, but she had a strength in her to keep trying, and that was kind of a really sad thing to just get like torn away. What I loved, you know, towards the end is that we're seeing Rick finally kind of come out his whole Rick-tatorship. You know, I feel like fans like the Rick-tatorship, some didn't, you know, it's a personal taste, I guess, but I like that we saw him kind of come out of it and say, this is a democracy. And of course, I feel like the whole point of him getting to that point is seeing a lot of different things, but definitely seeing the governor. When I rewatch the show, and I do it a lot, but more than I probably care to admit, I always am not the biggest fan of Arrow on the doorpost, that episode, just because I feel like it's a little slow, and once you've seen it once, I'm not a big fan of rewatching it for some reason. However, I think it is so important because it is the episode where the governor and Rick just come face to face, and Rick really sees who the governor became and that he doesn't really want to become that. He doesn't want to become that to his people. And I think it was just really, really important that, you know, we got to see Rick's complete evolution into a leader who is now listening to these people, and how important it is that these people are in his life. All right, guys, so now I am going to get into my favorite episode, the most defining moment, and the MVP for the season. So for me, the best episode of the season, though there are so many, and it pains me to not say clear, which I feel like most people would say, but for me, it was The Killer Within. I know I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. To me, I think that it just came out of nowhere, and it kind of proved that The Walking Dead will tear your heart out at any episode, not just the finales or getting close to the finale. This was episode 4. It seemed like a regular episode, and then everything went very, very wrong very quick. There was just so much in that episode that really kind of just tore people apart. Heartbreaking moments, happy moments before the heartbreaking moments, and then, you know, plenty of action and plenty of drama. It was just a horrible but great episode, if that makes sense. The most defining moment of the season for me was Merle's sacrifice. I think that it was, you know, a lot of the season, like I said, had to do with people changing, and Merle's change was really important, and it was very important to state the fact that maybe some people can change for the better, and kind of do a lot to try to make amends for all the kind of shit that they've done. It was a heartbreaking moment. I was a huge fan of Merle. I thought that he was a great character, even though he probably is not the best intentioned character. I loved that he kind of sacrificed himself so that his brother, and I mean, it was mostly his brother, but Rick's group would have a fighting chance against the governor. It was just such a great scene, and I was really sad about that. And finally, the MVP of the season is none other than, of course, Michonne. This was her debut season, and she was just amazing. She figured out shit about the governor very early on. She was able to get a family within Rick's group eventually, and even, you know, the relationship with her and Andrea was just so beautiful, and the ending of it all was such a tragic moment where she stayed with Andrea while she shot herself. I just think, obviously, the samurai sword wielding badass has to be the MVP of season 3. Thank you guys so much for watching my Walking Dead season 3 spotlight. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.